Hey everybody and welcome to Bits of Board, where we're talking board games, miniatures, cards and dice. My name's Michael and today we're taking a look at Palm Island, a small box card game for 1 to 2 players that is played entirely in hand. And that right there is the obvious selling point for this one. It's a card game that doesn't actually require a table, but more than that, it is a deeply replayable and challenging resource management game that has players develop a settlement right in the palm of their hand. Palm. Get it? They nailed this one. Over the course of a game, players will interact with cards in their personal deck, each representing the structures on their island. They either use them to store resources or spend stored resources in order to upgrade them to improve their usefulness the next time they're encountered. Each round will have players interact once with each card in their very light deck, and then after 8 rounds they score victory points as depicted on their cards, with most upgraded cards scoring more. The total score at the end of the game determines the level of how good you are, and in a competitive game it's also compared to your opponent's score to determine a winner. The box says 15 minutes, but for me Palm Island plays way under. It arrived for me just a couple of weeks ago, and on the first night I had it, I think I played it maybe 5-6 times. 10 the next day, and at least a few times every day since. Each play getting quicker and quicker. In this review, I want to give you my early impressions of the game. I've played it a lot, yes, but I say early impressions as I've still not completely solved this one, or run it dry for that matter. There's certainly a lot more of the game for me to uncover, including multiplayer variants of both co-op and competitive, and 2 modules, disasters and villages, that can be included whichever way you want to play. In this video, I'll begin with a brief overview of the base game rules and mechanics, and then we'll look at the additions. Finally, after that, I'll take you through my review of the game. You ready? Let's go. A standard game of Palm Island involves manipulation of a single 17-card deck, consisting of 16 structures which can be developed on the island, and 1 round tracker to keep track of rounds. To set up, arrange all the cards so that they're in the correct starting orientation with a little sun symbol in the top left. Shuffle, and then find the round tracker and place it behind the deck. Slide the top card down so that it reveals the upper half of the card behind it, and you're now ready to play. From this point on, players simply activate cards in the way they best see fit, with available activations present on the active portion of the 2 cards visible. Here we can activate either our fish-producing card or our wood-producing card. Over the course of a game, players will be given the opportunity to store goods, rotating the card 90 degrees, upgrade structures, either rotating the card 180 degrees or flipping it, or if none of these actions are what a player wants to do, they can discard, but this action can only be taken against the top card of the deck. No matter what action is taken though, when a card is activated, the card is removed from its place in the deck and returned to the very end of the deck in its new orientation. If an action has a cost, a player must spend stored resources, returning the cards stored to their unspent orientation. You can overspend if you need, but there is no change. And if a player ever reaches an unspent resource, having it cycle all the way back to the top of their deck, it's returned to its unspent orientation without benefit. Once the round card is reached, becoming the new top card, it is returned to the back of the deck, rotated or flipped to identify the new round being played. And once the round card is reached during the 8th round, it is game over and scoring commences. And that's it. That's my how to play for the game. In person, I would probably watch over a game to help identify a player's options and the usefulness of some of the cards encountered, but I'd also be pretty light touch in spoiling the usefulness of the various structures, as I've found this game to be very rewarding, not knowing what everything does and discovering usefulness myself through trial and error. I will say, fish, lumber, and stone are resources used to upgrade cards, with fish and lumber being the only 2 resources readily available from the beginning of the game. There are 3 of each producing card, and others that once upgraded can provide even more. All have multiple upgrade paths to get them to their final stage of development, which may be chosen depending on what a player wants to get out of them and what they have to spend. Other cards, including the market, help diversify what you have stored. And finally, houses and temples are the best at scoring victory points for endgame. And that's all I'm going to say. The strategy for dealing with all those cards as they come up is going to be up to you. Now, for solo games, for me, it's important that they have some element that makes you want to come back to them. Sometimes a simple win-loss scenario is enough, but often, as in games like this, they go the extra step to provide a measure of how you went. If you score under 20, you need work. 20 to 29 is respectable. 30 to 39 is exceptional. And 40 plus is astounding. I love it. I remember the first time that I hit 30 points, I was absolutely stoked, hitting 29 like 3 or 4 times in the games previous. My performance was finally exceptional, and I'd proved myself worthy in the eyes of Palm Island. Yes. 40 points though looked way out of reach, my goodness. Now if that was it, I would have been pleasantly surprised with the game, popped it away, and come back to it for travel or whenever I felt the need for something challenging yet chill. But it's here that Palm Island really sunk its teeth into me, because you see, the first time that you hit 30 points, you get to add to your deck a bonus card for achieving one of its feats. With the Statue of Trust, I actually gained a new card that could produce resources. More resources meant more upgrades, and more upgrades meant more points. Boom! I was straight back into the game to see just how this one card would change that base game experience. Another game, play, and before long, I'd unlocked my second feat. See, there are 9 total feats available in Palm Island, each one adding a card to the experience, each one also a challenge to unlock. Now, not every feat is a card that comes into the deck, but they do change the way that the game is experienced. Basically, they make the game easier, they make points easier to obtain, but you are still making those tough decisions on what to do with what you have and when. And by the time you've actually unlocked a couple of these, well, you're already hooked with that chase for the high score. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm not usually one for score chasing, but to me it actually feels like I'm building a narrative for my settlement. I actually feel like I'm improving this village and actually getting better at development. So I guess it's time to relax, right? Boom. Enter disasters. If I ever get tired of going for that high score, how about surviving a natural disaster? Instead of spending those precious resources to upgrade for points, I'm using them to survive this thing. Maybe next time I want to add some variety into the game. Deal out some villagers. Villagers provide unique powers that can change from game to game. Uncertainty check. Maybe solo's not my thing for the night. I'll grab that second deck, grab a second player, and then we can tackle disasters together. Or maybe we'll compete for the outpost cards, gaining additional points at endgame. Who knows, maybe I'll come up against a Palm Island veteran and we can race through each round for the privilege to purchase the upgrades. And you know what? If I ever have more than 2 players, I can get someone else to bring a second box. This game system can handle it. Man, there is just so much in this box. And if you ever get too familiar with the game, there are even instructions on how to adjust the difficulty to make it harder. Although by the looks of things, this is just removing feats that I've earned to make the game harder while trying to achieve the same scores. I don't know. So what do I actually think of this game? Is it obvious? It's good, guys. It is a good game. Firstly, I've never gotten this many players into a single game so quickly. It's got ease of setup, replayability, and it's highly engaging despite the simplicity of the theme. Yes, I'm just building a settlement, but there's no real context there until we get to disasters. But right now, there's not much to it, but I'm still absolutely digging it. The whole experience kind of reminds me of one of my favorite, in fact, my favorite solo game, Coffee Roasters, where you just literally brewing a cup of coffee, right? But despite the fact it doesn't mean much, I still want to do well at it. That said, the game probably works best as a filler game, but not in the light entree kind of game that you play before your mad game night kind of thing. I mean more as a filler game for things in life. something that you can sneak in whenever the opportunity strikes. I don't think it's quite quick enough to sneak in while the kettle boils, for instance, but it certainly kills time well enough if you've got any waiting to do. Appointments, buses, anything where you've got 10 minutes of nada, Palm Island will be your savior. And side note, if you're a decent multitasker, playing this while watching something on telly is the absolute go. Mechanically speaking, everything to me seems very solid at this early-ish stage of my experience. Cards seem balanced, and while some don't seem to be as useful as others at first glance, they certainly have their place, especially for achieving the feats and some of the more expensive upgrades. The game does require a certain level of dexterity and practice to play smoothly. Managing resources especially can be tricky when you reach the upper limits of the storage. Most definitely when you have to spend some of the resources and not others. Honestly, there were a few instances where a card or two would fall from my grip during the game, and due to the importance of card order and orientation, it was enough to kind of spoil the validity of the game, causing me to restart. Not a big problem though. Again, quick reset and playtime makes it mostly a moot point. It just could have been frustrating if I were actually playing well during those games. Now, price-wise, for a card game, I felt it was a little expensive for what comes in the box. $40 for essentially two 17-card decks and a few others to support it. But the build quality is totally up there. These are what, plastic kind of cards. They are waterproof, which means perfect for travel, which is definitely what they're going for. I mean, the game even comes with a little travel wallet, although it's not actually big enough to store all the cards. That said though, $40 for the amount of gameplay I've experienced, well, that is worth it. Bargains, in fact. And it's because of that that I cannot recommend this game high enough. This is such a refined experience solo with the option for so much more. I can totally see Palm Island becoming a forever game in the collection, simply for its portability, strategic depth, and replayability. It's also a very small box, so you can kind of just fit it in anywhere. Right, so that is it, guys and gals. Small game, small review, but big recommendation. If you want to know more though, let me know. And if you've enjoyed the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and do all the things that you guys can do to help this channel grow. Also, feel free to say hi on Instagram. Bits of Board is on Instagram now. Hooray! Other than that, we are done. So as always, my name's Michael. This is Bits of Board. We'll catch you next time.